Good evening, I'm Norman DePaul. We can be sure that there are only 8 shopping days left till Christmas, but nobody can even come close to predicting how many sitting days are left in this second session of our current Parliament. Yesterday was the 210th in a weary procession of argument, political maneuver, and straight name-calling. It may qualify as the wildest and woolliest in a good many years. Early in the afternoon, the government, convinced that the Conservative opposition would spin out the debate on the single maple leaf flag indefinitely, made a formal motion of closure. That passed by a vote of 152 to 85, and there were immediate complaints from the opposition that the cabinet was throttling freedom of speech.
I quote Mr. Pickersgill, who a couple of years ago said that never again would a government in its right mind bring in closure. It's completely inexcusable, unjustifiable, and indeed it will shock anyone with a belief in the parliamentary system. Just imagine. In the month of May or June, the Prime Minister said he would have his flag by July the 1st. He didn't say Dominion Day because that's an expression that's taboo in liberal circles. Then he was going to have his flag by the time that the Queen visited Canada. Then he was going to have a flag by Christmas. And when he found difficulty in achieving the latest of his predictions, he brought in a flag by closure.
Mr. Churchill, do you think that closure is inherently bad, or does it have a place in our parliamentary system?
The only place that I can see for closure would be under circumstances where a small group, suppose you had a group of communists in Parliament who did everything in their power to destroy the institution. You might, under those circumstances, have to use closure. I can't see it under normal circumstances at all.
What effect do you think this may have on any future election, Mr. Gordon?
It will have a serious effect on the Liberal Party again. I thought they'd learned their lesson in 1956. And one of their senior cabinet ministers, Mr. Pickersgill, said that no government in its senses would ever impose closure again. I didn't think it would be imposed for another generation. So it will affect them very seriously. It's an arbitrary act, and it's the serious weakness of the Liberal Party, arrogance, and it's shown once again here in the House of Commons.
My own feeling in the matter was that, while I'd like to see the filibuster brought to an end, I didn't think that the government was justified in introducing closure, because in a way they painted themselves into this corner by saying that he would have a flag before Christmas, and by persisting on the flag debate rather than dealing with other important items on the legislative program. The Prime Minister really forced the House into either supporting closure or having a continued debate.
Are you against closure, period, Mr. Douglas?
No, I'm not against closure per se. If this had been a matter which affected the lives of the people of Canada very vitally, if this had been the Canada Pension Plan or Medicare or a labor code and it was being held up and there had been adequate opportunity to discuss it, then of course I would have voted for closure. I think a flag is something different. First of all, there's no date line. Wouldn't hurt if we didn't have a flag until the end of the session or sometime next session. I don't think it was pressing. I don't think this is the best way to get a flag. I think that if you have a flag, you ought to try to get a general consensus of support behind it.
The government obviously didn't agree. That was in the afternoon. The night and early morning were still more bitter. We heard more names called, accusations of dictatorship and filibuster. The division bells rang again. We saw the red ensign finally rejected by more than 2-1. We heard a bitter final exchange between Prime Minister Pearson and the opposition leader, Mr. Diefenbach. The bells rang for the final vote well after 2 a.m. We saw the vote, and then we watched the aftermath.
How do you feel at this moment, Mr. Favreau?
Well, I feel much exhilarated, of course, and I think that it's a very much rewarding evening. As all of you know, I've had very trying 15 last days. I have learned more about the cruelty of politics, I think, in 15 days than many have in 15 years. But if I had to start it all over again as the price to obtain a flag for Canada, which is truly Canadian, I would start all over again, because that's really a very small price to pay indeed.
You're very moved by this decision tonight.
Well, I'm completely moved, The only reason myself I entered politics was to try to participate, if possible, very modestly, to the cause of Canadian unity. And I think that this cause tonight has been served or is being served as never before it has been. And for our future, that of our children and of all our posterity and Canada, this will have been one of the greatest nights ever.
I feel that this new Canadian flag is not a matter of any political party, especially or specifically. It is a matter of the whole of Canada. And as a social creditor and as the leader of my party, I feel very happy that Canada will have its own flag, a flag that will be respected right around the world.
What do you think of conservative tactics at the last moment, Mr. Cowett?
Well, I think the same thing as I thought before, because they have been filibustering filibustering the whole thing. Now the people of Canada will judge them. I'm not the one who will place any comments on their action. They will be judged by the people themselves. But I'm very happy about Canada having a new distinctive flag, not for the province of Quebec, but for the whole of Canada.
I hope now that the flag has been chosen by a 2-to-1 vote in the House of Commons, that all the members and all the people of Canada, irrespective of what their views may have been in the past, will now get behind this flag, and that we'll all do our very best to make this flag the symbol of a country that is strong, free, and united.
I think the public have to decide in the end, of course, what the reaction will be, but and capping it with closure, and then capping it with a motion that Mr. Diefenbaker isn't heard, and the Prime Minister is heard. No wonder if the Russians got rid of Khrushchev, then we should get rid of Pearson, because Khrushchev was certainly never half as dictatorial as this crowd is on this issue tonight, with closure, and then making a motion with their subservient majority to keep Diefenbaker off and to have the Prime Minister heard. I don't blame Pearson particularly. He's a good friend of mine. I'm sure he would probably regrets this himself, but it's one of those things that's happened, and this is not good for democracy and not good for Canada, and I'm sure the people in Canada in the next election are going to express their opinion on it.
Mr. Matheson, you were one of the committee that designed the original flag with 3 maple leaves and the blue bars at the sides. How do you feel about this flag, the one that is going to be the flag of Canada? Do you think it's as good heraldically as the one you originally advocated?
Norman, in some ways it's better. In the first place, it simply uses the 2 national colors, the white and the red.